The inner child is one of the greatest mysteries in all of our lives. The greatest psychology mystery. What is it? Luckily, therapists/helpers understand that the inner child is important. They understand what it is. They work with it all the time. And I have personally helped thousands of people overcome issues from their past with the inner child. I just hung up the phone with a client with a beautiful session. So let me explain to you what it is, how the inner child can mess up your life, and then how to fix it.
Welcome to the Best Years Podcast. This is Dr. Darlene at whatstopsyou.com. Are you a teenager or a young parent, baby boomer, or in your golden years? The best years are now, in each stage of development. So I've got power tools for you today that will help you make amazing changes so you can show up in the world with your amazingness.
The inner child is a part of you that may have had a situation that was less than great when you were younger. And because of meanings and beliefs that were formed at the time when you were young, got stuck in development. And these meanings and beliefs got stuck so deeply in your body, such as I'm a failure, I'm no good, I'm not safe, I'm abandoned, I'm alone. These meanings and beliefs got so embedded that they weren't in your mind only anymore. They went deep into your cells and your DNA. Now, as you grew up each day, these cells divided and became more and more. And then these beliefs became deeper and deeper. And then a person starts looking around the world to find a situation to make these beliefs even more true. If I believed I'm not safe because of an experience when I'm young, then I, you, we, a person would then sort the world to find places they're not safe. Or if we felt abandoned when we were young in a very traumatic situation in our mind, or perceived abandonment, perceived trauma, and that's the key, then we grow up and sort for all the times we're abandoned through life. Sadly, this is very common to all people, and most every single person has an inner child that's wounded and kind of hangs out throughout their life. How can it possibly be that I have a 50-year-old man sitting in my office sobbing because of a memory when he was 3 years old? This is, again, a common and sad thing. So how does this show up in your life? It shows up that this 50-year-old man had a trigger at a family party that took him right back to that 3-year-old feeling, and he started acting and behaving like a 3-year-old, throwing a tantrum, wanting everything to be about him. It was so coded in his body and so deep that he actually was aware that it was in his stomach. And he lived with this stomach pain for years and years and finally sought out help. Sometimes the inner child issues and trauma is coded in your heart or your sternum. Many places in the body, these traumas can be coded from what's going on. So it's in your body. So that's what the inner child is. It's a part of us that never grew up. According to Erik Erikson in his psychological stages, you can see that there are times that when we have trauma, we can either live through them in a positive way, or we go into the negative thoughts and behaviors kind of for the rest of our life, and they manifest as an adult. So hopefully that all makes sense to you, that this is what happens. So the inner child is a very important thing to address. So now we know what it is. We kind of know how it shows up in our lives. And so you might want to pause and say, yeah, when someone says this to me or this occurs, I just feel like I'm 5 or 16 or 3. So how do we fix this? There are lots and lots of ways to do it per your practitioner. My specific way is to find where it manifests in your body, and I'm coaching you through it, and then you trace it back in time to the first time you ever found or felt that feeling, and then you have found, we call it the imprint experience. It's important to go back to that time it occurred and kind of step back and then look at the inner child and see what beliefs are being formed that they didn't believe yesterday. But all of a sudden, because of the quote perceived trauma and or real trauma, that it embeds in meanings or beliefs. And then there's really cool therapies, and everyone, like I say, does it differently, to go back and visit that inner child. I just got off a session with a young man visiting himself when he was just young and holding him and loving him and looking at his little self and looking at his eyelashes and the little hair on his ears and looking eye to eye saying, I know you. I love you. And you love me. And then I often have them imagine or pretend they switch places to where then the client becomes the little child and is looking at the older self, visiting them, embracing them in an appropriate way, and connecting and bonding. And then there are ways to empower each other. It's a beautiful process. And then I have the patient step back and look and say, what resources does this child need? Hope, faith, love, information, etc. And I found that of all the resources, self-love is one of the most important, because if a child is grown and goes through any trauma, if they truly have self-love, they can get through anything. When I say perceived trauma, what I mean is I have had identical twins that come to me. One of them comes to me, and they were severely abused sexually. Her twin sister had no problem and lived life and says, yeah, Dad just messed up, and went on. But she was devastated. She had been in psych wards and was suicidal. And the same thing happened the same day to both of them. So again, it's not always, and it seems wrong, but it's true. It's not always what happens to you. It's what you make it mean. How in the world would a 1-year-old or a 3-year-old or a 5-year-old make it mean the correct things appropriately? Not often. And that's why we need to go back to the inner child and chat with them and teach them. So many beautiful things can happen. Let me tell you one story of the most profound patient I've had. And in my book, What Stops You? Overcoming Self-Sabotage. In fact, you can grab that on Amazon and it'll walk you through a lot of these processes. But I use Anna as a fictitious character in the book. And of course, Anna is based on real life clients or patients. So in the book, I talk about, and this is a true story, but I talk about how Anna, at age 40 something, comes into my office and has this trigger and feeling. She starts crying, and we find that it's coded in her stomach, and we trace it back in time through a visualization process to age 3. And little Anna is sitting on a swing, swinging, and she's in a park right next to her house. So she can see her mom in the kitchen, but she's over there with her friend and her friend's mother. Well, she's swinging along, and all of a sudden, something happens. The mother came up behind little Anna and grabbed one of the swing sides, the chain, and stopped it abruptly. And Anna looked around and saw this mother, and the mother said, if you ever talk that way to my little girl again, I will cut your pretty little braids off. And she had scissors that were right by her hair. Anna was frozen. The mother huffed off, grabbed her daughter, and left. Anna sat in the swing for a long time as the swing slowed down more and more. What had happened? How scary is this? How alone do I feel? How controlling are other people? The world is scary. I don't know what to do. I'm all alone. Now, as my patient was explaining this to me, she said, what's funny is I remember believing then that pretty was bad because I was flaunting my pretty little braids in front of my friend, I guess, and that really ticked off her mother. And I was kind of making fun of my friend who had short, dumb hair. So now I can see why the mom did that, but man, I have a trigger about that. And I asked her, wow, we talked about it. I said, what did you believe the day before the episode? And she said, well, I believed I was safe. I believed I was pretty. I believed the world was wonderful. I believed everyone loved me. People were important. I was important. I was smart. I was wonderful. And then she could see from stepping back and looking at this story that one episode, bam, shifted her beliefs forever, it seemed like at the time, to I'm not safe and I'm alone. Now this story points out that it's about the beliefs and the meanings that we make. So she lived her whole life sorting the world for how she was going to be controlled by others. That showed up everywhere in her life. After we did the inner child work, she was fixed. And I mean fixed, where she never had that stomach ache again. She never, ever had a bad memory about that. She looked back and went, oh, and she got it. And it had meaning to her now in a new and different way. She reframed the situation. So inner child work can be absolutely powerful and life-changing, more than you can imagine. We need to remember that feelings buried alive grow and have babies. So when we want to live in denial, that's fine for a while. Pretty soon it'll catch up to us. When we introspect, that's the most powerful tool I could ever share with any of my patients. Introspection, looking in, stopping, noticing. And most people won't acknowledge this and introspect about the inner child without assistance because it's a little scary to do on your own. And I agree, it is scary to do on your own. So reach out to helpers like myself. Just make sure when you're with a practitioner that you ask them, do you do inner child work? And ask them 1 to 10, how good are you at inner child work? And if they don't say 10, then call somebody else. So obviously you can make an appointment with me with my contact information, whatstopsyou.com, and I can guide you through quickly and easily, usually in 2-3 sessions, maybe 5. It's pretty fast work based on where you are in your learning curve about introspection. It's so exciting that no matter what ails us psychologically, we can take care of it, fix it, and move on with love, light, energy, skills, tools, and move forward. Thanks for listening today, and we'll talk soon. I hope you learned a lot.
If you like what you've heard, please subscribe to my channel so we can hang out. Also, go to whatstopsyou.com for notes to this podcast, more articles, and more tips so you can indeed live the best years of your